Commander, the game for casual fun, where it's not about winning, it's about having a good time. A good time with friends. Your friends who sent you a text message filled with spoilers for Endgame before you'd even seen it. Your friends who switch colors for Pack 2 and 3 just to screw up your draft deck. Your friends who run smokestacks because LOL. Screw it. Let's just build a Super Jerks deck. It's an awful fun deck. Well, it's awful for your friends to play against. And in the end, isn't that what Commander is all about? Yes, it is. And who better to helm up a Super Jerks deck than the newly revealed Vorinclex from Kaldheim? Vorinclex Monstrous Raider is a 6/6 for 6, but that's not all. This Phyrexian Praetor has haste and trample, and if you would put one or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead. Let's stop right there. This means that when you cast a Planeswalker card, you place double the loyalty counters on it. So a Planeswalker, such as Nissa Who Shakes the World, will have not 5, but 10 loyalty counters placed on her. This means that you can cast and ultimate Nissa Who Shakes the World all in one turn and get an emblem with lands you control have indestructible. Search your library for any number of forest cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. We're in mono green, so spoilers, we are mostly running forests. Well, basic snow-covered forests to work with extra planar lens for double mana, and still screw with our opponents with cards like Hall of Gemstones. But basically, ramp into Vorinclex, cast Nissa, ultimate her immediately, place 25 or so forests into play, maybe help yourself to some triggers from rampaging Baloths, creating 25 or so 4/4 beasts, or myriad other awfully fun, synergistic counters matter moves that I'll cover in just a moment. The key is that with this ability alone, a handful of our superpowered Planeswalker friends can literally be cast and ultimate themselves due to those double counters. So Ugin, the Spirit Dragon, will enter with 14 loyalty if our commander is in play. We then -10 Ugin immediately, gain 7 life, draw 7 cards, and put up to 7 permanent cards from our hand onto the battlefield. And in each of these cases, both Ugin and Nissa stick around to do more mischief next turn. But wait, we didn't even finish reading Vorinclex. There's so much more, an awful lot more. If an opponent would put one or more counters on a permanent or player, they put half that many of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead, rounded down. This means that our opponents who want to uptick Planeswalkers of their own, +1, actually get no loyalty at all. Nor do they get +1/+1 counters, or the ability to give anyone so much as 1 poison counter, and anything bigger than 1 is halved. But remember that half of 1, rounded down, is 0. Alright, now I went and said the word poison, and I know everyone wants to talk about this deck as Super Jerks in fact, but I actually have a very different route I decided to take, and I'll talk both that route and in fact in just a moment. But first, let's meet the rest of the Super Jerks. So if we are talking Planeswalkers we can ultimate the turn they come into play, in addition to Ugin and Nissa, Who Shakes the World, we're going to want to run Garruk, Caller of Beasts, who gives us an emblem that says whenever we cast a creature spell, we may search our library for a creature card and put it into play. Remember, there's no way to get rid of emblems, so even if opponents remove your Planeswalker or Vorinclex, those emblems are yours for the rest of the game. Just like the emblem for Garruk Unleashed, another creature searcher and placer onto the battlefield, and another ultimate on cast thanks to our commander. Nissa, Vital Force, will give us an emblem that lets us draw each time a land enters the battlefield under our control. Vivian Reed gives us an emblem for giving all our creatures a power toughness boost, as well as trample, vigilance, and indestructible. And while they don't grant emblems, the ultimates that we can fire off with Vivian, Nature's Avenger, Nissa, Genesis Mage, and Garruk, Primal Hunter are nothing to sneeze at. Almost everything here synergizes with creatures, counters of course, the playing of lands and the drawing of cards, and so instead of an infect build, I've built a stompy counters matters sub-theme into the rest of the deck. Why? Because you would always be arch enemy with Infect, and this is a deck that wants to ramp up into its commander and make some madness with those planeswalkers. And you are going to have a bullseye on your head the moment you turn one Glistener Elf. No, in order to actually play this deck, I've instead gone the route of creatures with counters. And when you say creatures with counters, you are talking Hydras, which synergize so powerfully with Vorinclex. So while you are readying the Super Jerks, your opponents will have to deal with threats like Primordial Hydra, Hydra Omnivore, and Whiptongue Hydra. These get ramped up with our commander in play as well, obviously, but are big threats on their own, along with classics such as Polkanose, World Eater, Ulvenwald Hydra, and Mistcutter Hydra. And while it's true, creatures do die to removal, and while yes, we will of course be running spells like Asceticism, Rapid Vigor, and Heroic Intervention to help try and protect our forces, the best defense is a good Ozolith, which will just take all these wonderful counters from any dying Hydra and place them on another creature next upkeep. Renata, Called to the Hunt, and the Great Henge will also make sure all our non-token creatures enter with +1/+1 counters. So not bad when we refill our hand with an inspiring call. Tuskguard Captain and Crowned Ceratok therefore are must-includes, as they will give all our creatures with counters trample. Rishkar Pima Renegade helps us out not only with a couple of counters, but the ability to tap all our countered creatures for mana. Forgotten Ancient gets a counter every time our opponents cast a spell, and we can move those counters to other creatures however we please. Loyal Guardian simply puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature we control if our commander is in play, and if it is, that'd be 2 counters. Armorcraft Judge will let us draw a card for each creature with a counter on it when it comes into play. Vigor adds counters to our creatures when they are damaged, and Pollenbright Druid can proliferate all of this. Slurk, All Ingesting, is practically a counter commander in its own right. It enters the battlefield with 5 +1/+1 counters on it, and whenever Slurk or another creature you control dies, if it had a +1/+1 counter on it, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control that has a +1/+1 counter on it. Spoiler alert, that's everything. And of course, Beast Whisperer just lets us draw a card each time we cast any of these creature spells. In addition to the usual ramp of green, we are going to enjoy cards like Incubation Druid, Karametra's Acolyte, and Gyre's Sage. And of course, when it is time for that game to end, if Nissa's Ultimate didn't already handle it, then classic green finishers such as Triumph of the Hordes and Craterhoof Behemoth will do the trick. I know I said no Infect, but hey, games need to end, so we're packing Triumph. You may be asking yourself why. Why not choose a commander in colors like Simic or Sultai to really unleash the full potential of EDH Infect? Why, you could even do crazy synergy with Vorinclex in the 99 and black and even blue access to Planeswalkers. Planeswalkers that can ultimate the turn they come into play, like Jace, Architect of Thought, or Jace, Cunning Castaway, who will literally go infinite. Infinite Jace! Imagine how your friends would squeal. So why not go that route, you ask? To which I say, geez, dial it back. The deck's awful enough. I mean, it's only a game, right? Show some control.
Some say we in the Orzhov Church collect debts from those in death as unfailingly as we do those in life. They say the opulent loan sharks of Ravnica have every loophole exploited for their own personal gain, with gold-clad contracts for everyone else. I say those are just the words of someone on the bad side of the bargain. So what say you, dear patron? Do you want to win and collect, or lose and pay the price? With me as your commander, our gold-clad contract will deliver you to victory.